The NBA Finals will get started, but we have news of an entirely different sort. You were looking at pictures of Zion Williamson, who is one of the most eagerly anticipated NBA prospects of all time, and Adrian Wojnarowski, who was very busy yesterday with a variety of breaking news, has more for us this morning. Pardon me. Go ahead, Woj. Take it from live from Toronto. What do you have on Zion Williamson this morning?
Greeny, Zion Williamson has signed with his NBA representation. He has signed with CAA's Austin Brown, Lisa Joseph Metellus. Austin Brown represents several NBA players: Jaren Jackson Jr., D'Angelo Russell, Colin Sexton, Donovan Mitchell, and Joseph Metellus worked very closely with Dwayne Wade throughout his career, especially with his off-the-court endeavors.
So how consequential is this, if you could, in 15 seconds, how consequential is this for the average fan sitting at home watching this morning?
Well, this is going to be one of the most marketable players off the court who's come in the league since LeBron James, possibly a record-setting rookie shoe deal, maybe the biggest since LeBron. And this is a player who every agent and agency pursued. This is like a moon landing for an agent to sign Zion Williamson.
Okay, I like that. On the 50-year anniversary, I like that comparison. Okay, two other things to get to with you here. We opened our show with two of your reports from yesterday that Anthony Davis had breakfast yesterday with David Griffin in Los Angeles to talk about the possibility of him staying in New Orleans. What sense are you getting that there is a real chance of that happening?
Well, it's going to continue to be an uphill climb for David Griffin to convince him to want to return there this season, but he's under contract there. They don't have to trade him at the draft or before July 1. They could take this to the February trade deadline. David Griffin's going to continue to communicate with AD's camp. Now, it may not be one-on-one conversations going forward with AD. I'm told it may be more with his agent, Rich Paul. But David Griffin went in yesterday and made his case to AD about what a future in New Orleans would look like under David Griffin's stewardship.
All right, so that's obviously very significant going forward, as is your report that Daryl Morey, the general manager of the Rockets, is aggressively pursuing moves to change around his roster, and that practically every player is possibly on the trade market. What do you think realistically could happen there, particularly with Chris Paul and all the money that he still has on his contract?
Yeah, Greeny, realistically, listen, James Harden, to imagine that you can trade Harden and make your team better, it's hard to imagine what that trade looks like. And that is Daryl Morey's goal here. How do we make our team better? Chris Paul, 3 years, $124 million left on his deal, 34 years old. That's a difficult contract to move. The most realistic scenario here, Clint Capella, a young center headed into his prime, under contract for 4 years going forward. That's more realistic.
Yeah, we were actually joking in our meeting this morning. The problem is if you trade Clint Capella, you need to get back like Clint Capella. So it doesn't really, I'm not sure how you get better by trading Clint Capella. Anyway, well done. Well, I know you traveled through the night to do this morning. Thank you very much, and we'll see you after game one of the finals.
Guys.
Enjoy there. Let me bring it back here to the table. And Jay Will, we had gotten word from Woj of this just before we came on, and I know you were very interested in this. If I'm a fan watching at home, why is it so important where Zion signed?
We talk about this stuff in the boardroom. First off, I hope that he did not give, in all due respect to CA or anybody that signed him, I hope he didn't give them 20% of his marketing. Like, he's one of the most prolific athletes we've ever seen. Hopefully he just said, hey, you're going to do this. If you want me to be on your client roster, you're going to do it for 5% or 10%. You can negotiate that down. Secondly, Greeny, why this is such a big news? Because all the rumors and the things that you heard leading up to this about where he was going to sign, you heard rumors of the fact that Jay-Z and Roc Nation sent a private plane for him down to South Carolina that he chose not to be on. So the plane returned back to New York empty. You heard of those type of stories surrounding the courting of Zion Williamson and how everybody wanted to be involved. And then out of nowhere, Austin Brown and CA get him, and you're like, oh, a lot of people didn't even know they were even involved to that degree.
What do you think about Jay?
Well, for me, I think Zion Williamson is kind of he's going his own direction, right? He's doing things differently. Didn't sign with an agent right away. Look, he's going to be the number one pick. Like you said, it's the same thing. You don't need to put yourself in a position where all of a sudden you're like, I'm giving up 20%. I signed with an agent right away. I think taking his time and doing things the right way, I think this is a sign of an individual and a group that's doing things properly.
Why do you need an agency? Why do you need an agency, though? Like, If my thing is, if you're thinking about, I'm challenging the status quo here, though. I'm not saying that CAA is incredible. But I'm saying, why not just hire an agency for a flat fee, a marketing agency for a flat fee?
But he could have done that. We don't know that. But I think the process in which he's doing things is proper, and I think that's a good sign.
I agree with you.
Seems to me, if I'm Zion Williamson, and I mean, he doesn't need advice from me, but I wouldn't be trying to sort of rediscover the wheel here. Like, he is in a prime position to do things sort of the way they've always been done and make more money than you could possibly spend in 20 lifetimes. And if he wants to do something kind of out of the ordinary, do that afterwards.
Yeah.
You know, kid's only 18 years old. He's got plenty of time to change.
It's not out of the ordinary just to hire a marketing firm. It's not CAA and say, hey, for $200,000, your job is to go get me all deals. That's not out of the ordinary.
One way or another, the breaking news this morning from Woj, Zion has chosen an agent to represent him. Meanwhile, our news here is that it is 98 days until the start of the football season.
Yeah.
And we love that because it gives us an opportunity to talk about the Arizona Cardinals. Their OTAs underway. First-round pick Kyler Murray, first pick overall, already being compared by his teammates and coaches to Patrick Mahomes. Christian Kirk, who's a receiver, said the Mahomes comparisons are fair, adding, quote, the ball is just so quick coming off his hands, and the ball is usually never late, and it's usually never underthrown. Here's Cliff Kingsbury, his coach, saying he can drop it down. Pat was the same way and is the same way. Remember, he coached Mahomes in college. They can drop it down and not lose accuracy, not lose touch. They're so used to throwing from different platforms, different angles in baseball, and it just translates over to football for them. Does that seem to you to be a reasonable comparison, Kyler Murray to Patrick Mahomes?
There's some traits there that stand out, absolutely. I mean, you're comparing him to a guy that took the league by storm, MVP last year. All the Cardinals players are doing is telling everybody what we've been saying on the show for a couple months now is sometimes with athletes, you can just see that they're different. They do stuff that you just haven't seen before. I love Cliff Kingsbury's comments of like their ability to drop down and whatnot. Like, the Kyler Murray has this ability to make all kinds of throws no matter what the situation is. We saw this from Patrick Mahomes last year. On the run, full speed, my feet aren't set. This throw against Texas is nuts that his feet are one way and it's perfectly thrown another way. But we saw this last year from Patrick Mahomes. That's why these comparisons. And also, it's not just the eye test. These guys last year in college, production-wise, touchdowns, yards, are almost identical. So there's a lot of things, game-wise, production-wise, the way they play, their traits, that are very similar. And the reality is this, Greeny. That's why this kid was one. That's why you had to get over the height to realize this kid does things that you don't normally see from players at that position.
I understand. To me, the comparison I've been hearing had been Russell Wilson, because maybe part of it is because of the size, the baseball background, and all the rest of that. But if all of a sudden we're going to make this kid Patrick Mahomes, then he really is going to take the league by storm in a way that you're talking about.
I believe he will. I believe that first season, this first month of this season in September is going to be absolutely spectacular, and he's going to do some special stuff. Again, sometimes as athletes, here's the question. Do you hear the Giants saying stuff like about Daniel Jones about this, or even the Redskins about Haskins? Like, their players going, wow, this guy is doing stuff that we saw somebody win MVP of the league do last year. You know, like, there's special play or traits to this kid's game.
It's going to be very interesting to watch. Again, 98